Yeah, Cyberchew. Is that, what am I saying? Cyberchew sounds like a Pokemon. Why did I say that? Cyber Yamu is, yeah, that's a good channel to watch for your, um, what I'm trying to get at is that I don't understand. Yeah, and then schizotypy as neurodivergence is a good video. Um, I said this to someone on the internet. Um, I said I don't understand why doctors don't make sense when they lump. Um, Doctors don't make sense. They lump me in with autistic people, ADHD, whatever. But when I go online to research and talk to schizospec people, it makes more sense. But doctors warn not to get your information on the internet. But it makes more sense than them, though. Not advocating to self diagnosis at all. It's just talking to people where I don't have their diagnosis. I relate to them more. Like, I relate more to them. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not advocating for self diagnosis, which is kind of crazy because even people on the autism spectrum, a lot of people on the autism spectrum are starting to say things such as, like, there's a lot of people in the autism community that think that self-diagnosis is okay. Um, I hate to be an outlier on the autism community, but I never really agreed with that because a lot of the autism traits that you could be seeing in yourself could very well be just something completely different, like schizoid personality or schizotypal, or maybe you just have the autistic phenotype, but you don't actually have autism. So I never really agreed with the autism community when it came to self-diagnosis. A lot of them are starting to be pro self-diagnosis. I don't know when this began. This could have began maybe like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but it's starting to be more acceptable, and I hate to be the outlier, but I don't really agree with self-diagnosis at all. I used to for basically everything, but I don't agree with self-diagnosis for anything mental or physical, or not even the common cold, because you don't know if it's the common cold. I don't really advocate for self-diagnosis at all. I don't self-diagnose anymore. The only self-diagnosis I do is conditions that are they don't exist anymore. Um, I don't have issues self-diagnosing myself with conditions that don't exist anymore. Now, it's not to say that I used to be diagnosed with said disorder, but now it's gone, like Asperger's. I'm not saying that. Um, You know what I mean? Because I can totally understand, like, oh, I used to be diagnosed with Asperger's, but now it doesn't exist anymore, so I still want to cling on to that diagnosis. That kind of makes sense because it was official for you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stuff that it was never placed upon me as a diagnosis at all, but it doesn't exist anymore. Like multiple complex developmental disorder. I was never even diagnosed with that at all, but I self identify with that because it just kind of relates to me. But I can't really get in trouble because it doesn't really like exist. In fact, I don't even think it ever really. I don't know if it ever really existed to begin with. Actually, that's another thing too. Is the only time I self diagnose is either it doesn't exist anymore, or it was gonna be put in the books, but it never did, kind of a thing. Like cycloid psychosis is not really recognized in my area, and I self-identify with that. Um, you know what I mean? I've self-diagnosed myself with that because it doesn't really like exist in my area. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really get in trouble because that's not really like a thing in my area of Connecticut, America. You know what I mean? So it's not really like recognized, like, you know what I mean? But in general, I advocate. But even with that nowadays, I don't really identify with that because it's like no one knows what that is and it's not recognized. So I'd say even like nowadays, people would ask me, do I still self-diagnose with multiple complex developmental disorder and cycloid psychosis? Believe it or not, even though I said I did in the past or whatever, not really, because people don't even know what the fuck that is and it's not recognized. I still identify that it could be a possibility, but um, it's just kind of, I just stopped self-diagnosing myself with that, with both of those conditions, because how do I really know that it is a cycloid psychosis, even though technically it does fit that description? But it could just be psychosis from homocystinuria, or I'm having seizures for all I know. So I've given up kind of like with self diagnosis with real disorders, imaginary disorders, and disorders that don't exist anymore, or rare disorders. I stopped doing that totally. I'm actually moving on more to a less medical approach when it comes to my experiences. I know that's going to cause a lot of controversy, and a lot of people are going to say that I'm, what is it, feeding into delusions, or I'm advocating for delusions, which isn't true. Maybe my own, like maybe my own delusions, not people, not other people's delusions. I gotta keep my voice down. Not other people's delusions. Like I only validate my own delusions. You know what I mean? Like if someone's going through a delusion, I always tell them to get mental help. But when it comes to my stuff, I think it's all just paranormal now, and it's all just a simulation. So I have to tread really lightly with this video. If you're going through weird beliefs or weird experiences, always make sure to see a mental health professional or a medical physical health professional, because maybe it's physical health, maybe you're having seizures or something. But for me, I'm taking a less medical approach when it comes to my weird experiences. I still want to rule out seizures because I'm having these weird auras and weird feelings and weird pulsatile feelings in my upper back and pain and stuff. So it could very well be seizures, but man, doctors just like they don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Um yeah, all these doctors, they blame all of my problems on autism. Apparently, like my back pain in the ER, the ER lady said my back pain's due to autism. It's just like, why I don't it just creates more paranoia. Like, why a doctor is using this autism against me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like they're using this autism label against me. Like, it's so weird. I say doctors in my state are ignorant as hell compared to other locations like Argentina. I know a guy with schizotypal that's from Argentina. It's so easy to get that diagnosis for him, apparently. Ohio, Michigan, I feel like I'm living in a TV show. I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. In my last video, I said I was in the Truman Show. I feel also like I'm in, like, a Groundhog Day fucking situation. Like, like, I don't know if you can hear me okay or whatever. I feel like I'm in a fucking Groundhog Day situation. Like, you know what I mean? But Cyber Yamu is a good. I think they identify as she, but it could be they them. They're, yeah, I don't know, man. But yeah, I just feel like I'm in a Groundhog Day situation. I'm just stuck in a loop. They just keep sending me in a loop for 10 years now. I've been trying to figure out if it really is schizoaffective, and then they erase that from my diagnosis, and now it's just autism and ADHD. They send me in a loop. They send me in a loop. They say labels don't matter, and it's just so fucking annoying, man. Like, the emergency room doesn't want to tell me anything for my mental health. They just think it's anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD. I've spoken with people with autism, ADHD. We think and act kind of similar, but not totally. You know what I mean? It's just kind of ridiculous. Uh, there's a controversial person on the internet called Andrew Ditch. It's always advised to not compare yourself to controversial things, and it's always advised to not compare yourself to controversial people, and I'm not at all to anybody, but this person, you know, I feel like I'm living the opposite of that person, you know, because you know, I don't support them. Like, I don't support their antics or anything like that. Um, I don't. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to get at is that they go around their area looking for an autism diagnosis, and all the doctors say they're schizoaffective. And for me, I'm literally going through the opposite. So yeah, they think that they're autistic, but doctors say that they're schizoaffective, and then um, I think I'm schizoaffective or schizophrenic or schizotypal, and doctors say you just have autism. And I'm going around my state saying I have schizotypal, I have schizoaffective, I have schizophrenia, or I think that I might do. And all the doctors in my area say no, you just have autism, and I get set back to zero. So yeah, that Andrew person, yeah, they're very controversial. I don't support their behavior, you know what I mean? But, I feel like I'm living in, like, a reverse situation as them. On my freaking trolling thread, the trolls won't really get in the references. You have to research that person and then compare them to me to know what I'm talking about. You know, the Turkey Tom video, I feel like I'm going through like a reverse situation as them, you know? And it's just so weird. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna end this video. I don't think I'm ever gonna get my answer to my psychosis. It could be a medical problem, but my homocystinuria, vitamin B12 deficiency, but I don't know. I just believe in ghosts. I see ghosts. There's something out there. The aliens might exist. We might reincarnation might exist. It might be a trap by the archons from Gnosticism, maybe. I don't know. Um, I think I am schizoaffective because there's days where I don't think about this stuff. Maybe it is. I always thought it was schizotype of personality because I always felt ingrained in my personality. Maybe it's not because there's days or months or weeks or whatever where I don't think about this shit, or if I do, it's not to the extent, and I don't believe in it some days. I wonder if doctors think that my hyperfixations on this stuff is just autism. They don't think maybe they don't think I believe in it at all, or they do, but they think my belief in it is not a mental illness, so they respect it as a weird belief and an overvalued idea, but they think the obsession is a mental illness or like OCD or a neurodivergence like autism. Maybe that's what they think it is. Like, oh, you believe aliens and ghosts, but your obsession with alien ghosts, it's not a mental illness to believe in it. It's just autism, hyperfixations, and OCD. Maybe that's what they think. Surprised I wasn't diagnosed with OCD, actually. People could kind of argue that maybe you just have hypochondria and OCD instead, because that can also cause magical thinking. But the issue with OCD is they're afraid that they might have schizophrenia, or that they're afraid that they might have weird beliefs, but I legit do. Like, there's not always like a fear based around it. I legit have these beliefs, so I don't know. And I've had internal hallucinations, voices in my head, usually due to sleepiness or caffeine, coffee. Um, I think other things have triggered it in the past. I don't know. Most of my hallucinations are external voices, like in my left ear. That's another thing too. The external hallucinations. There's now a lot of people. I know this video is trying to stretching it to 30 minutes. There's now people that are saying that internal auditory hallucinations are like people. There's people that are starting to say that internal auditory hallucinations. You know, there's debate if that's dissociative identity disorder or not, like the internal voices versus the external, which is schizophrenia. Now there's people that are saying that internal and can be schizo spectrum. Like in the past, people have said that if it's just internal voices, it's just DID. Like that's what people said in the past. Like if you just hear it in your head, it's probably DID. If you hear it in your head, maybe you're just sleepy or whatever. That's what people said in the past if it's internal auditory hallucinations. But now people are starting to advocate that no, internal could definitely be schizo spectrum. And I don't know if I agree with that, but maybe. But for me, it's always been external. Well, at least lately, the last couple of 2 years, 1 year. I don't know. I mean, if someone were to ask me which ones you had the most ever in your life, internal, probably internal, only because of the sleepiness and the caffeine and the coffee. But if you're talking about internal naturally, I never really had internal naturally, not due to some kind of substance of like caffeine or something. So I never really had internal, oh, sleepiness. So I never really had truly internal. My most of my psychotic breaks are external auditory hallucinations, like in my left ear. I think they're both valid. Someone was doing a poll about that on schizophrenia forum on Reddit. They're both valid. I don't want to live in a reality where it's going to become more common to get them inside your head, voices inside your head versus outside. I don't want to live in a reality where the external auditory hallucinations are starting to die out, and I don't want to live in that reality. I think they're both valid, you know, external, and I'm not trying to validate the common experience and invalidate the uncommon experience. I'm not trying to do that. But I don't know, man. External auditory hallucinations, like I relate to that more. Like they're in my left ear, man. Like you know what I mean. just saying Johnny and hey, whisperer. I can't even if it's a man or a woman, it's a whisperer. I can't. It doesn't have a gender. I can't tell its gender. You know what I mean? But the voices inside my head are more diverse for conversation, and they have gender, a deep devil voice of a man, and a high voice of yeah, look at your profile, look at it right now. Like I was on Discord and it said amp up your profile, and then the female voice inside my head was like, yeah, amp up that profile. I'm like, what? And like I don't want to. So yeah, like the voices inside my head are more like I gotta put this down. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sound all muffled. I'm sorry, this is gonna be 30 minutes. The voices inside my head have genders. Oops. The voices inside my head have genders and stuff like that, and the more louder, like booming thoughts, like OCD. And the more they could be more negative too. Internally, externally, they're just kind of like genderless whispers that just say the same old shit in my left ear. Externally, like Johnny and hey and Johnny and hey, and it's just kind of like fucking like what are you talking about? And externally, yeah, that's what it is. Externally, Johnny and hey, Johnny and hey. Internally, it's more like demon voice saying you're never gonna get an answer to this medical problem of your back. And then in a female voice, a woman voice. I'm sorry, females. Apparently, that people don't like that word. A woman voice. Yeah, but and inside my head could be more negative sometimes and more diverse for conversations and stuff. But that's just my reality, man. And doctors just don't want to put schizospectrum back on my. After I get this stupid back scan, no matter what the frick the results are, I'm gonna tell my doctor. I'm gonna tell my doctor that I'm starting to see colors, and I want to know what it is, and if I want to see if it's psychosis or not. And if he doesn't think it's psychosis, and if he doesn't think it's seizures, I'm gonna say that doctors are manipulating me. You're manipulating me. It's the Truman Show. I say I'm getting kind of fed up with doctors invalidating me. You all in on it? You don't think I'm schizo? You don't want to validate my colors of seeing the shadow people? And I say, you know what? This is adding to my paranoia, and this is actually further proofing, if that's even a word. The more that you say it's not mental illness, the more I'm starting to believe that it is paranormal. You just don't want to say it. The colors, the paranormal, the paranoia, it's all real. The more that you say, okay, it's not a mental illness, then it's got to be paranormal. We don't believe in ghosts at doctors' offices. Do you even, when I say paranormal, I don't even mean necessarily ghosts. Look up the vague definition of paranormal. It says, like, the definition of paranormal at its vague level, it just means something that's outside of science. That's all that it means. What if that's what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, what if that's what I mean? You know what I mean? Maybe I'll split this up into. I might split this up maybe because I don't know if anyone's gonna watch this whole thing. I mean, paranormal could be ghosts and aliens, and maybe it is, and I think it is. But at its vaguest level, it technically is paranormal in a sense. Same thing with a cult. It's hidden knowledge. That's technically what this is. You're hiding knowledge from me. Now you could broaden the definition and say that it's occultic, as in that it's the magical stuff. But maybe I'm not referring to that. Maybe I'm referring to the vague definition. I don't know. I don't fucking. Doctors don't want to help me. I went to the. Let me add this. I went to the psych ward in November last year of 2025. And I was talking to my primary care physician about that because the people at the hospital, whatever, was contemplating that I might have, what is it? They were contemplating that I might have psychotic depression. And when I questioned my doctor about that, he was like, yeah, but I don't think you have psychosis or schizophrenia or bipolar or anything. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you don't have any knowledge that I went to a mental health facility in 2015 and they said schizoaffective, and what? I don't show the symptoms? The primary care physicians don't ask you your thought content. They just, primary care for doctors just go over your physical stuff. So he doesn't see me on the daily. Not even therapists see me on the daily. Maybe that's why they're not giving me any answers. It's just very invalidating. Why? Because I'm not mumbling to myself and whenever I'm having my yearly checkup. How do you know what I am and what I'm not? These doctors, I swear, it's the Truman Show Matrix. I don't think I mentioned this in the 30 minutes of rambling, but I've said this before on my channel. Well, I think I'm gonna make this. Well, actually, I think I'm gonna make this audio only because I don't think the video is gonna be able to process my visual aspect of myself and the audio. It's just gonna be too much, fucking gigabyte, whatever. So sorry. This is gonna maybe one day I could keep talking about these topics and finally do it on camera. But lately, I just can't do it on camera because I don't know. Just God doesn't want me to because of it's gonna be too much of a big. Okay, whatever. So anyway, so sorry if this is audio only. Whatever, whatever, whatever. This is too big of a file to process vision and voice. Okay. I don't think I mentioned this in the 30 minutes of rambling. Okay, so what am I trying to say? In 2023, I don't think I mentioned this in the video. In 2023, I saw a therapist to question him about the schizo spectrum thing, and the only thing he said was labels don't matter, and he never wanted to talk about it with me. In 2024, I got an IQ test, and then he said, "Oh yeah, you have an IQ of 74. You have autism and ADHD." And when I questioned the guy in 2024 that gave me the IQ test, like, could it be possible that I have schizo spectrum, like schizotypal? Schizotypal? Oh, that's a personality disorder. Well, that's not why you're here. We're here to talk about your low IQ and you're autistic. You're autistic and you have ADHD. And he invalidated me, and I said, "Well, I believe in ghosts, though." Well, doesn't necessarily mean you're schizo, and it's common, and that's true. But then I mentioned the simulation theory, and he said, "Oh, you believe whatever you want, as long as you're not doing crazy stuff or stupid stuff. You can believe we're in a simulation. You can believe whatever you want." I'm like, well, what's the difference between that and mental illness? Oh, well, if you're going walking your whole entire life thinking that life is a simulation, then it's a mental illness. Well, maybe I should have had more therapy sessions with him because that was 2024 and now it's 2026. Maybe I should have just kept on seeing him because for 2 years I'd be still talking about the simulation, and at this point in a parallel universe, if I was still seeing him and he still rejects me to get a schizo diagnosis, at that point he is very ignorant and he probably just thinks I'm fictitious or disorder or something, or I'm just wasting my time and I'm in my autistic delusions apparently or something, because I'm still talking about the simulation 2 years later, and even years before seeing this guy in 2024 or whatever. I would always talk about the simulation. I would always make videos about it. So no one validates my experiences. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it.